Oh, I ripped it in half.
Oh, okay. You don't need to get so angry.
Gen X. I have a little presentation about
I'm
Gen
so
X.
curious about Gen X because we never talk about Gen X. It's just
No,
boomers
truly.
or millennials, right? We just pretend that they're almost silent, if you will.
Can I give my little guess as to why this is the case?
Sure.
I think that the reason they're forgotten about a lot of the time is I think culturally we basically lump them in with baby boomers. I think that's the main reason that we don't talk about the specifics of their generation.
Let's show it.
Yeah.
So if you can pull this up, this is Gen X, also known as at least in America, the MTV generation, because that was such a dominant cultural influence when they were growing up.
How old are they right now? Just give me a sense of it. Because boomers are like 65 to 70 or 65 to 80, something like that, right?
No, that's you're thinking of Gen X.
Oh.
Gen X is 65 to 82.
Oh.
Roughly.
Wait. Oh, damn. Okay.
Boomers are right after the war, so 46 to 64.
Damn. Okay. So I have been lumping them together. Okay.
Yeah, well, so they get them a lot because there's the way the population curve went. There's so many more boomers that Gen X just wasn't big enough to have a cultural impact, to have a economic and political impact the way that boomers did. So they kind of got forgotten. They're often called the forgotten generation. 65 to 80 is their number. So when they were born, it was like the Beatles and Black and White, or when the earliest ones were born. And when the latest ones were born, it was like the 1980s. Rubik's Cube just came out. It's Yuppies and it's Reagan and it's boom times. So they were named after this novel by Douglas Copeland about tales for an accelerated culture. And I think that's the main thing is culture really began to accelerate in their time with mass media. These are all some famous Gen X people. And a lot of them who have big cultural impact today, like Joe Rogan is the most popular
Or damn,
podcaster.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Didn't know he was.
That's Vin Diesel.
Well,
They're equally. Yeah.
no, Vin Diesel's a millennial.
Will Ferrell, Kurt Cobain died young, but he's kind of like one of the most famous like Gen Xers, the rebellious. That's the kind of idea. They were big of analog technology, the Walkman, the VCR, early floppy disks and PCs. All of that is very Gen X. They got to experience a lot of this stuff before it became all digital. One of the quotes they might say is like, again, this is one of the first generations to have two parents working. So women started entering the workforce. So they were called the latchkey generation because they could just leave home and wander around and go on their bikes and do whatever. So what's very funny is the generation when we see like, when I grew up, I could go play outside till sundown without a parent or cell phone or anything. And now this generation is one of the most likely to have 6 tracking apps on all their children and like Life 360 and, watch everything they do. So very interesting. One of their big events was the fall of the Berlin Wall. Again, in 1991, they were like, in their 20s for this. The invention of the World Wide Web happened for them. 9/11. Again, this is also a millennial thing, but we were young. They were like,
we really did not experience 9/11 to any meaningful degree.
So that's sort of Gen X in a nutshell. They got to draft off a lot of things that the boomers had, but again, are too small to claim the full power of it. They didn't have enough of a voting block to take it. I did have a big con I wanted to show, and this is what I found while researching. This is happening right now. This is called the Gen X Career Meltdown. It's basically that Gen X came right after the boomers and really wanted to emulate them in a lot of these creative fields like photography, graphic design, advertising, music, film, TV. But unlike the boomers who got to finish their career, make all the money and sort of retire while those things were still thriving, Gen X is being hit with all of those things radically being disrupted by the internet while they're still like 45, 50, like still needing to earn, still needing to figure it out, and all of it's getting wiped out. And so it's actually a really deeply kind of sad and dangerous time because they can't change. Like it's much more difficult to be like
Learn to code.
just learn to be like 45 or like 54 with 3 kids and to be okay. I'm just going to change my career radically. Like newspaper editor no longer exists as a career in a lot of places. Like it's just it's wiped out. Photography is all digital. Like the things they spent their life doing don't exist.
Yeah, that's interesting. A lot of the automation and stuff that, like the trucking industry, there's a lot of Gen X in there. As those jobs get decimated, like who wants to retrain and hire a 65-year-old, 20-year-old truck, somebody who's been trucking for 20 years. And
I'm having conversations every day with people whose careers are sort of over. A 53-year-old film and TV director, talking to people in their late 40s and 50s about who once imagined they would be able to achieve great heights or at least a solid career are now more likely to hear about the photographer whose work dried up, the designer who can't get hired, or the magazine journalist who isn't doing much of anything. It's weird because they don't have like a World War I or World War II. Their biggest crisis is coming late in their life as the things they spent their years doing are irrelevant. Like That's an interesting crisis to have. It's kind of unique.
Is this your, because for me, this is my parents' generation. Is this your,
I have one boomer, one Gen X.
okay.
I thought my parents were boomers, but they are Gen X, but like late Gen X.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and I see my parents are pretty happy, pretty stable, enjoyed the prosperity of, but my dad was in the military, which is not a career that got changed.
This is really interesting because I still associate somebody who's 50 plus as benefiting from the economic environment and everything that the boomers really ushered in, and it still feels like they got a ton going for them. And really, the one downside is this like major transformation towards the end. But I still think that they got to be there for genuine moments of like American exceptionalism, including the Soviet Union falling. And I would include 9/11 of like a moment of like the nation really rallying together around this thing. Whereas again, we grew up when we're just in Iraq. Like we didn't grow up, like being like, hey, we had this, big crisis that we had to overcome together. We're just like, oh yeah, we're killing tons of people every day in
but
Iraq.
if you guys are younger, it's worth noting that after 9/11, America was like, we put 95% approval in George Bush. Like it's the most united America's ever been behind a president. It was the most bipartisan the bills ever. Like it was a brief
country
period
was like united as Americans, unless you were Islamic, but like we were united as Americans, and like that's like foreign to us. And and that same unification was then used to go start a war in Iraq and spend tens of trillions of dollars. Like the stupidest possible use. But like during that Gen X period, like you had American exceptionalism. Yes, technology's starting to change, but there's still the generation that really benefited from that. In the same way that you're saying like, oh, these things have changed. All of the TV and movie executives who are getting wealthy off all these things are Gen X, right? They're all,
sure.
And so
it's very widely distributed, like all generations are. So I would say it's a fair point. And it's worth saying that by the rule of like, did you have a better time than your parents? They did. They absolutely did. They had a way better time than their parents. They were in an era of actually real peace and prosperity in America, only near the end where it's starting to like fray and they're still active.
I think this one is interesting. I figured this would be one of the harder ones to place. For me, I take millennials over Generation X. And I think because if you're in the millennial category, you were just younger when the internet became super important. And I think you were more likely to adapt in how that fits into your life and career, which I think is a very, very important thing for how you succeed from there. And also like the amount of options that you have to take your life in. I do think there's an economic argument for choosing Gen X. Like I would understand if somebody chose that generation over millennials, but that's kind of my vote. Is like I stand by millennials here.
I think I personally would take millennials because I fear change and I know the devil that I know. But I think realistically, if you're doing a marble out of the hat, Gen X had a better chance.
You have statistically a better chance of success.
I think this is the lowest risk option of what we've talked about. Millennials, as we talked about, like these new trends come in and are crazy disruptive and we're adults and can handle it better. But I'm sure we all know plenty of millennials who have not handled things well and are dealing with lack of affordability and lack of job prospects and all these things. And so I think just the gap between haves and have-nots really started to expand on millennials, and Gen X, it's still a lot of that. Just you could follow the path and have a good life kind of vibe still existed.
I guess the way I would look at it is
get a house, get a good career, go shake somebody's fucking hand and get a job. Like, go to medical school, and medical school, my dad had made more money after medical school than when he went in because he would work on the summers.
Yeah.
Like education was affordable is the point, right?
Like the stuff that boomers said still worked for Gen X. It doesn't
and for us, all of our friends who became doctors are still in debt 10 years after graduating. Like
If I was picking this, like I was some omnipotent being, I was dropping a marble into the system of life, I would drop it into Gen X. But for me personally, I would pick millennials.
Same. And for me, it's like technology is what makes me excited to be alive. And if I was back then, I was just like, oh, cool. You hear about Pong? Like, I don't know.
Dude, you say Pong, the literally thing it's like selfish, but in my mind, I'm thinking of gaming. It's like they didn't have good games.
Right.
When you get older, when you get older, there's arcades. You're also in the time period, like you're in the wake of the civil rights movement. Like there's so many interesting cultural things happening in that time period too, like through your teenage years to your 20s.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, you have some sick video games. You get Donkey Kong by the time you're like 24.
You don't get anything sick, really. Like,
you don't think Donkey Kong's sick when you haven't seen anything else?
GoldenEye doesn't come out until 1997.
Bro, but you haven't seen it, GoldenEye yet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like multiplayer, playing with making like the things that I
Think
love
about
about gaming.
no, it's because your dopamine receptors are fried, bro. Dude, imagine you
can't
still
even enjoy
Gen
it.
X.
the
Gen X.
Zoomer is telling
Think
me
about this.
my dopamine receptors are
No,
fried.
I'm saying put yourself in the Gen X body. You have farm to table dopamine receptors still, and you're playing Donkey Kong at the age of 25 in the arcade. That
This
rips.
shit hits.
That
Yeah,
rips.
that would. Yeah,
Get a
relative
cheap
like that's
slice
got
of
to be.
pizza. You're playing. Hey, you're making a good case.
I bet the high
For a
from playing
dumb
Donkey
Zoomer.
Kong when you're 25 is higher than any high you've had playing League.
That's what I actually no. I think that's
that's not true.
that's crack.
That's not true.
All right. Well, you know what it is, and you know what we have.